Hey everyone, and welcome. Today we're diving into a topic that, let's be honest, can give any accountant a bit of a sinking feeling, finding and fixing an error from a prior period. But don't worry, it's all about having the right process, using good judgment, and really understanding IFRS. So let's get right into it.
So picture this, you're knee-deep in this year's numbers, and bam, you spot it. A mistake in last year's finalized statements. Maybe it's a missed accrual, maybe a calculation is just wrong. That feeling in the pit of your stomach? Yeah, that's totally normal. But look, it's not a matter of if this happens, it's a matter of when. The real question is, how do you handle it? And that is exactly what we're going to break down today.
Here's our game plan. We'll start with that oops moment and talk about the golden rule of what to do next. Then, we're going to unpack the single most important word in this whole conversation, material. After that, we'll clear up the crucial differences between an error, an estimate, and a policy change. Finally, we'll tie it all together to see how the final verdict is made and, why this all matters so much.
All right, let's dive in. First things first, what's the baseline? What's the default action when you find one of these errors? Well, the International Accounting Standards, specifically IAS 8, gives us a very clear starting point.
And here it is. The guiding principle is crystal clear. You have to correct these errors retrospectively. Now, that doesn't mean just fixing the number in the current year and moving on. Oh no, it means you have to go back in time. You have to restate the comparative figures from last year and adjust the opening balance of your retained earnings. You're essentially making the financial statements look as if the error never even happened in the first place.
So, why all the fuss? Why go through all this trouble? It all comes down to this core idea. Financial statements have to be reliable, for sure, but they also have to be comparable. If the numbers for last year change without a proper restatement, how can an investor or anyone else possibly see a real trend or accurately judge performance year over year? They can't. It breaks the whole system.
Okay, so the rules sound simple enough, right? Find an error, restate everything. But, and this is a huge but, there's a magic word that changes the entire game: materiality. This isn't a hard and fast number. This is the accountant's filter. This is where professional judgment really comes into play.
So what does material actually mean? The official IFRS definition tells us everything we need to know. It's not about how big a number feels to you, it's all about the users of the financial statements. Could this error, if they knew about it, change a decision an investor might make or a lender? If the answer is yes, well then it's material. Period.
So how do we actually figure that out? We have to look at it from two different angles. First, there's the quantitative side, the numbers, the raw dollar value of the mistake. But honestly, the qualitative side is often even more important. A tiny error, dollar-wise, could be massively material if it does something like tip a company from a profit to a loss, or breach a bank covenant, or mask a negative trend. That's where the real detective work happens.
Now, to make this less of a guessing game, auditors have this really smart system. It's kind of like a funnel. At the very top, you have overall materiality. That's the big ceiling for the financials as a whole. Then, to be safe, they set a lower performance materiality to act as a buffer zone. Sometimes they'll even set a specific materiality for a super sensitive area. And way down at the bottom, you've got the trivial threshold. That's the floor. Anything below that is usually just noise.
Let's put some actual numbers on this to see how it works. Say a company makes $10 million in profit. An auditor might set overall materiality at 5%, so that's $500,000. Then their buffer, the performance materiality, might be 70% of that, $350,000. And the trivial threshold, the floor, maybe 5% of that buffer, so just over 17 grand. See how that tiered system creates a really disciplined way of sorting what matters from what doesn't?
Okay, so we've got a handle on materiality, but there's another crucial fork in the road we have to navigate. You have to be absolutely sure what kind of issue you're looking at. Is it a genuine error, or is it a change in an estimate? Or maybe a change in accounting policy? Because I'm telling you, the accounting treatment is completely different for each one.
So what does a true error look like in the wild? Well, you've probably seen some of these before. It's things like just plain forgetting to accrue for year-end bonuses, or recognizing a big sale in December when it really happened in January, or a simple, straightforward miscalculation of depreciation. These are the classic oops moments, the prior period errors.
Now, this is where it can get a little tricky, and it's a place a lot of people get tripped up. If you change an accounting policy, like say you decide to switch from one valuation method to another, that requires the exact same retrospective restatement we talked about for errors. But
If you change an accounting estimate, like updating the useful life of a machine because you got new information, that's treated prospectively, meaning you just apply the change from this point forward. You don't go back and mess with prior years.
So if you remember one thing from this section, make it this rule of thumb. It's fantastic. If new facts, new information cause you to change a number, it's almost always an estimate change. But if you have fundamentally changed the accounting rule or principle you're using, that's a policy change. Getting this distinction right is absolutely key.
All right, let's pull all these threads together. We have the golden rule, restate. We have the filter, materiality. And we know how to tell an error from an estimate or a policy change. Now it's time to make the final call and talk about the one step that is completely non-negotiable: documenting your decision.
So when you're in the hot seat, here's your playbook. It's a clear, three-step process. First, assess the quantitative side. Run the numbers against your thresholds. Is it bigger than performance materiality? Step 2, evaluate all those qualitative factors we talked about. Does it impact a trend? Could it be seen as hiding something? And step 3, the most important step of all, you write it all down.
And this isn't just busy work, folks. This documentation, usually a materiality memo, is your proof of diligence. It's your professional shield. You lay out the error, its impact both quantitatively and qualitatively, and the clear reason why you chose to either restate or not. This document isn't just good practice. It's a key file that your auditors are absolutely going to want to see.
And at the end of the day, this is why it all matters so much. This whole process isn't just about following abstract rules. It's about protecting the confidence of investors. It's about making sure your reports are consistent and transparent. It's about demonstrating your own professional integrity and creating that crystal clear audit trail that builds trust in the entire financial system.
I love this quote because it just nails it. Look, nobody is perfect. In big, complex companies, errors are going to happen. Finding one isn't a sign of failure. True professionalism is all about what you do next. It's how you find it, how you assess it, and how you correct it with total integrity and solid judgment. So I'll leave you with a challenge. Now that you have this framework for correcting errors after the fact, how can you flip it around and use it proactively? How can you apply these same principles to build stronger, smarter financial controls in your own organization to maybe catch these things before they ever become a prior period problem? Something to think about. Thanks so much for joining me.